Only a few days ago, VR was released for Dreams in what was considered by many as a monumental update. But I want to pose the question, was it worth it? Should VR have been prioritised over some other crucial and much needed updates? Let's discuss. Hey, welcome to Little Big Animation. We are all about creating inspiring video games and animations to unleash your imagination so you can realise your own creative dreams and share those with the world. There is no doubt that the VR update was an incredible one. Not only does it allow us to create brand new experiences, essentially offering a limitless supply of VR content, but also acts as a magnet to draw in brand new players who are keen to use their PlayStation VR in new and exciting ways. It could be said that Sony were keen to push for a VR mode with this in mind. Gaining more sales on VR headsets and Move controllers is no bad thing from a business perspective, and it does make sense on paper that adding even more possibilities to Dreams can only benefit the game in the long term. According to sales statistics, PlayStation VR has sold over 5 million units, which far exceeded my expectations. I personally don't own one as of yet, primarily due to the price and the fact that the PlayStation 5 is looming, but Dreams is certainly the game to get me on board. It makes me wonder though, from all of those numbers, how many existing Dreams players and creators have access to the headset as it stands? It could be a case that this update only truly satisfies a small percentage of the player base. This reminds me of when Little Big Planet 2 was given cross-controller mode via the Vita and Move support. Both of these updates were amazing, yet severely underutilised. I just hope that the VR update doesn't suffer the same fate after all of the effort that has gone into it. It has to be said that this VR update isn't actually just for VR players. A lot of the tools and tweaks have actually been transferred over to non-VR mode as well. How useful these new tools will be to non-VR owners has yet to be seen, but from examining them, they do seem promising. The head tracker, which is essentially to aid VR players to fully look around an environment with ease, can also be used outside of VR as solely a HUD menu. Previously, you could only create a HUD using text or emojis, but now you can use your own sculpts. Ever wanted to use your character's head to indicate your total lives or display the actual gun you're using? Now that's all possible. The hand tracker to replace the imp with a gun, sword, magical wand, etc. can also be used outside of VR as it has no bearing on your vision. You can simply continue to use the imp movements with your DualShock 4 controller. Of course, these are welcome additions, but it's certainly not on the level of truly owning a VR device. One thing which I found really disappointing is that non-VR users cannot create for VR. Hold on there, but you don't have VR, so why should you be able to if you can't personally test? Yep, I've thought about that. Adding a collaborator who owns VR would be the easiest way to bypass this restriction. However, as I've harshly realised, as the host of the creation, you must play or edit the scene whilst in VR yourself to unlock the option to label your creations as VR compatible. As it stands, I could make a VR game, but the VR community won't be able to see it in search unless they tweak their settings to also include non-VR labelled creations. Even then, I'm not 100% sure that this will get around the problem. I do plan to use the new tools to create something which has cross-compatibility with VR and non-VR players in order to include everyone. But ultimately, if VR players cannot access the content, then that's something I'm just going to have to live with until I do get a VR headset of my own. When that will be is anyone's guess, with the expensive PS5 on the horizon and the possibility of a PlayStation VR 2.0. My issue with the VR update is not necessarily due to the fact that I don't own a headset and am therefore locked out of the core experience. Personally, I felt like other updates were more crucial, with online multiplayer being top of my list. Not only has online been promised for such a long time, but it's kind of essential in a game like this. We are always going to compare to Little Big Planet, and anything that can do, which Dreams cannot, will always draw some negative attention. Just imagine being able to create directly with another collaborator online, or finally enable the ability to make co-op and multiplayer focused dreams. I know that some of you are probably thinking though, online multiplayer will eventually arrive and the VR update is simply one step further in developing Dreams into this ultimate creative suite. I absolutely agree, and if crucial features such as online multiplayer arrive relatively soon, then I will be much more relaxed. The thing about Dreams is that it can be a very lonely and isolated experience. I can live with that, I mean, I've had to get used to it, but what about other players? Particularly players who do not create. Playing alone can grow stale, especially when you compare with the many other games that they could be playing with their friends outside of Dreams. Overall, online multiplayer would have satisfied a larger player base, which would be my main point. But I do hope that those who can experience VR enjoy it immensely. On the subject of updates, I have noticed a few concerns about the lack of certain features, including some I have of my own. The music community at the moment feel completely deserted, with some features as note slides not possible, unlike in Little Big Planet. I'm not a musician, but one feature I can get behind resolving is the shackled 15-second record limit. This limit was put in place to make it difficult to import copyrighted tracks. But what we have now is a clear restriction to not only musicians who want to record vocals and instruments, but also voice actors who would like the freedom to record longer takes. The 15-second reduction is supposedly a temporary restriction, but no news has been heard since, and it's been quite a long time since it was enforced. Let's face it, reducing to 15 seconds isn't going to prevent copyright. If you are dedicated enough, you can just record 15 seconds until you have a complete track. Not to mention that anything over 3 seconds is technically infringing on the rights anyway. 15 seconds does nothing but cripple the honest side of the community who want to create amazing audio. Please, Media Molecule, address this issue as soon as possible, as it's hurting far more than you perhaps realise. One more update that I'm not so hopeful about, yet I'll voice anyway, is the lack of built-in facial animation. Again, even Little Big Planet has facial animation. The difficulty with being a storyteller in Dreams is that you're heavily restricted by how awkward and tedious it is to actually get facial animation working, let alone look good enough. We all know that facial animation can present so much to a player or viewer, so it's important that this is easier for the masses to implement, otherwise we just lose part of the soul of the scene. It's great to talk about all of this because even though it may seem like myself and others are jumping the gun on these issues, it's all for the desire to make Dreams the very best it can be. There's no point in just sitting around and hoping for the best to come. We want to help in any way we can to shape Dreams and keep it on its path of incredible potential. What did you think of the VR update? Was it more essential than some other possible updates? Let's discuss down in the comments below, and subscribe if you're new here. We are all about creating inspiring video games and animations to unleash your imagination so you can realise your own creative dreams and share those with the world. If you'd like to support us on our quest to provide you with the very best inspiring content, consider clicking the join button right next to the subscribe button below to become a channel member, which comes with additional exclusive perks such as early access to demos, behind the scenes content, your name in the credits, along with custom channel badges and emojis. You can also explore our Patreon page by visiting patreon.com/littlebiganimation or by following the link in the description below. Thank you. Would you like to see even more inspiring content? Click on one of our videos on your screen now. You can also subscribe by clicking on our little red imp. See you in the next Dreams video.